Vault, moving away from an IPO and now raising capital from existing investors. We've also seen, just recently, Vativa, Limepay, Airwallets, just some of the brands recently completing capital raises in that space. There's a lot out there, though. There's a lot of opportunities out there. How do you find the right ones, apart from just watching Ausbiz every day? Jeremy Liddle from Third Hemisphere has been working in and around this space for quite some time and joins us now just to give us some of his thoughts on it. Jeremy, I just want to get your sort of sense of where we're at the moment. Do you feel like the process of raising capital has changed much in the last couple of months?
Look, it's certainly a lot more difficult. You mentioned Volt just now. They were out raising capital internationally. So all the other neobanks in Australia had raised the vast majority of their capital from international investors. And Volt raised their first 100-odd million, mostly from local investors. And then the next big round was going to come from overseas. And what happened, care of COVID, was that they were forced to come back onshore. And they've still got great conversations happening with their investors overseas, but they've come back onshore and are doing a rights issue here instead. So certainly in a fairly conservative capital market like Australia, when there's uncertainty, there's a lot of, there might be some reluctance to go into early stage startups. But I guess the flip side to that is, where there might be uncertainty in public markets for private asset like early stage technology companies that are shielded from public market valuations. There's actually, for the large volumes of cash that might be sitting on the sidelines right now, there's a lot of incentive to go into startups because they're going to be able to stay private and their valuations will be driven by their internal drivers and just making progress as opposed to the fluctuations in the equities markets.
Jeremy, what's your sense of what you're seeing in investments at the moment? I know there's a big report coming out from Tech Board on the last quarter, and I know the neobanks sort of led the way on that, on a bunch of successful raises. But what's happening in the lower ranks? Sort of if you're under 50, if you're under $10 million, is there much action?
Look, we've seen some Sydney Angels, data from Sydney Angels, which is another client that we work with, is really good. So they've just invested in a whole range of new early stage startups, and that's right at the really early stage at the seed round. So, investment rounds of sort of $200,000 to $400,000, and they've said it's business as usual. All of their members are very, very active in working with the startups and happy to be investing still. The big change that they've said is that they just need to be more active and offer a lot more help to those startups. So, that every early stage, all companies right now are facing uncertain times and might need help from their investors or their shareholders. So, like angel investors and I think the VCs as well have just really had to jump into these companies and help them where they can. But we've also seen, from the VCs in the market, those that had the dry powder, those that already had raised their funds, like the Air Trees, it's been business as usual for them as well, and we've seen some huge rounds of capital raised. But for the VCs that unfortunately were out in the market trying to raise their next fund just as COVID hit, that's going to be hard for them. So you might see some activity slowing down from them for a while until they get their next fund raised, and then they'll be deploying again.
So if you're a early stage startup and maybe you're just going through Antler or one of the other programs at the moment, should you sort of be looking for something else to do if you happen to be sort of in the restaurant sector or hospitality or travel or that sort of thing? And if you're a med tech or a fintech, be going all guns blazing at the moment?
Yeah, well, it's certainly changing the sector focus of a lot of startups. And exactly like you say, if you're a technology with application in a sector that's shut down right now, then it's going to be very hard for quite some time. So you might look to pivot. We've seen, so another client that we represent is Cicada Innovations, and they've got about 65 odd deep technology companies across agri-technology, biotech, energy, a lot of different deep technology sectors. And some of those companies have gone through little pivots. The ones in biotech have created some incredible applications. Like there's a company called Collumino that's put a sensor out that can do sensing of your temperature in your face for COVID. and it's an incredible product. So a small pivot to the application of their sensing technology has created a massive market opportunity. And there's quite a number of deep tech companies that have made moves like that. So certainly the companies that in that deep tech sector that are based on engineering or scientific research that have got strong IP protection and the ability to go into markets and create new markets are at an advantage.
That sounds really cool. We should get them on.
Yeah, they are. It is amazing because they stuck that together in a couple of weeks, didn't they? They moved really quickly to create that.
Jeremy, just before we let you go, I know you you wear a lot of hats. One of them, you do a lot of work with startups around sort of, public relations and publicity and stuff. Have you seen a shift in people, I guess, getting a bit more professional about using that kind of stuff to get the word out and to try and create some deal flow or interviews and meetings and stuff?
Yeah, well, look, we have always encouraged companies that want to raise capital to use the media as a way to inform the capital markets and inform investors about what they're doing, before you go in and pitch them. And in this uncertain climate, it's been much more difficult because media's been very focused, obviously, on the big crisis. But what we've seen some companies do really well is treat it like a crisis management situation and create some real leadership and thought leadership. So, you guys had Limepay on recently that got a big round away just as we were going into COVID, and because they had an application that was for the retailers that were already struggling so much in such a tough situation, it made a lot of sense for them to make noise in the media. And we've got a number of companies that are coming to us, and we always encourage, obviously there's times when it's inappropriate to be talking about certain things, and you don't want to be seen to be taking advantage of a bad situation to promote your own company. So it's, you need to have real news and be doing something really meaningful. But we always talk to our companies about how to think strategically about your communications and to help inform the media and inform the news so that they can, get the word out about what they're doing and definitely use that to help them with their capital raising.
Yeah, cool. Well, send them our way because we just like talking to them.
Yeah.
We just think it's really interesting. Good story.
Fascinating people.
Jeremy, thanks a lot for your time. We'll chat to you again soon.
Thanks so much for having me on. See ya.